All right, people. So I'm here to give my thoughts on this whole Caitlin Clark saga. And this is more of a rant on the people reacting to Caitlin Clark than it is about Caitlin Clark herself. First, I want to talk about the players, some of the players at least, that are going after her, cheap shotting her, throwing her under the bus, even though she's brought in all this attention to the WNBA. It's ridiculous how people are not giving her credit. Her teammates aren't standing up for her when other players are clearly cheap shotting her. And you know, the WNBA has gotten so much attention over the last, few weeks that it never even came close to having 2, 3, 4 years ago, or even decades ago, throughout the whole history of the WNBA. And people are not giving Caitlin Clark the credit. She is the one person that deserves the credit for this, whether it's, just luck or whatever the fuck it may be. Just because she's a unique player, she should get the credit, because she is the only reason that people are actually give a little bit of a fuck about the WNBA now. So give her credit for that. Secondly, the people acting like they talked about the WNBA 3, 4 years ago, like I saw Stephen A. Smith the other day saying, "Oh yeah, I covered the WNBA 3 years ago." No, you didn't. And just own it. Like just own it. Like, no, you stop trying to be politically correct and say you gave a fuck about the WNBA 3 years ago. You clearly didn't. There was a viral conversation where, a commentator on ESPN accused Stephen A. Smith of not covering the WNBA, the same way he is now, as compared to 3 years ago. And Stephen A. Smith tries to defend himself when all he has to say is, "Of course I didn't cover the WNBA 3 years ago because nobody gave a fuck about the WNBA before Caitlin Clark got here." That's the point. Like, all these women trying to, the WNBA is not about one woman. It kind of is now. Like, it honestly is. You got Caitlin Clark at an A+ level, and then everybody else is at a D level. Like, that's where we're at. Let's just be quite honest about it. So, I just don't get people what Stephen A. Smith said. And kind of thirdly, I'm just sick of hearing about the WNBA, because even with Caitlin Clark playing, it may get a little bit more people, but in the grand scheme of things, still, nobody gives a fuck about the let's just be quite honest. Nobody gives a fuck. A year ago, there was 5 people watching. Now there's maybe 13 people watching. Okay? Nobody cares about the WNBA. The average person is not watching a single WNBA highlight. And every time I turn on ESPN now, it's like they shove women's sports down your throats. There's women's this, women's that, women's... it's all over the place. So, nobody wants to watch women's sports. I am sorry. Nobody gives a fuck about women's sports. Why? Because they're not even close to being on the same level physically as men. So, clear, obviously men are a lot more entertaining to watch than women. It's just a fact of nature. That's how God made us. That's how it is. Don't try to change Don't try to change reality. You can't change reality. So still, nobody gives a fuck. I think, I could be wrong, but I think Caitlin Clark's going to be a flash in the pan. I think in the next 6 months to a year, they may have higher viewership, but I think it's going to go down. I don't think it's going to keep going on the same trend where more and more people are watching WNBA basketball. And lastly, too, for the people that have always complained about the pay discrepancy between WNBA and the NBA, or women's sports and male sports, shut the fuck up. Men bring so much more revenue than women's sports. Again, it's just how it is. Accept it, people. It's a fact of life. Men and women are different. Stop trying to play this equality bullshit game, because there's many differences between men and women. So I'm sick and tired of hearing about Caitlin Clark. We're not even talking about the actual play of the actual game. We're talking about, all the other bullshit details that are going on. And this is also proof of point too that women cannot handle their emotions. You know, some men can't either, but you know, women especially. Let's just be quite frank about it. There's a lot of women that are cheap shotting, that are jealous of Caitlin Clark because, you know, they've been playing in the league for a long time, and now Caitlin Clark comes along and she's all of a sudden the top WNBA star by far out of anybody. Again, these are just all facts. And for people trying to defend what Angel Reese, that cheap shot that Angel Reese did to Caitlin Clark, she's just being physical. No, that's clearly a cheap shot. If a man did it, it would be a cheap shot, and it's definitely a cheap shot. I mean, obviously it is. Stop trying to be all tough. Oh, we're tough women. That was just physical play. You guys can't handle physical play. Like, shut the fuck up. It was clearly a cheap shot. So just accept it as that. And just accept the fact that there's a lot of women out there in the WNBA that are jealous of Caitlin Clark. So there you go, people. There's my thoughts on that. Let me know what you think about Caitlin Clark in the comments below.